You know what the problem is today? People have way too much energy. That's right. Before the 1920s, people didn't have energy. You're like, what are you talking about, man? Them people busted their heinies out there in the fields and doing things manually. That's right. Because they didn't have any energy. When I mean energy, I mean electricity. Nobody had electricity. About 1920 is when the average person started to get electricity in their homes. And usually all it was one line coming from the pole, and that would have a light socket on it. And then if you wanted to plug anything in, which there wasn't many things to plug in because not many things were made to run on electricity in the beginning, but they would plug in an adapter. We still have these today where you can screw that in the light socket, and then there would be wall sockets on the uh, outside of it. And a lot of these people would have these things way overloaded. They'd have fires. And then things like the radio started uh, coming about, and that brought people indoors that would normally be out sitting on their porch. That's what people did in the evenings back in the day because, well, they didn't have fans and they didn't have air conditioning. If you lived in a place like I do in Arkansas where it's hot at night, well, you wanted to be outside. Sometimes they slept outside there. A lot of people slept out on their porch. They might have a hammock or beds out there. But electricity started to change people's lives and make it a lot easier than it is today. And I think we take that for granted. But more importantly, what started happening after the 1920s is generations started to differ from each other. The next generation, people would say, oh, they're lazy. They don't want to do anything. All they want to do is stay in the house. Well, before 1920, like I said, they would be out on the porch or they would be out. There would be nothing indoors for a kid to want to stay in other than maybe to eat. And I'll bet you half the time they grabbed their plate and they went outside and they ate outside. And, life was a whole lot different. About probably, I don't know when the radio people started first getting radios, but the thing of it is they would have shows like we had, a lot like we have on television, that would come on every week, and they would all sit around the radio and listen to the shows, and that would give them something to look forward to, maybe an hour show. They would have music shows. Everything was done through the radio, and then people started getting news through the radio. Before radio, news came through the newspaper, which would have been a few days behind, depending where you live. And electricity just changed everything. And it kind of amazes me how we didn't really get this until 125 years ago. I don't know what that noise was, guys. This is the first podcast with all my new gadgets and stuff. So I just did one earlier and it didn't record. Anyway. But now look at current day. These kids have things. They have video games. They have their computers, television. They have streaming. All these things are keeping them indoors. I think if we had all those, if I had those in the 70s and the 80s, we would do the same thing. We'd be doing it would have changed if it hadn't have changed our lives. If it didn't change their life, it certainly would have changed ours. Would be vice versa. You know what I'm talking about. We would have done the same thing if those things were offered, but they weren't because technology wasn't there yet. And so I think we were a little hard on them. We're the ones that gave them a lot of these things. My generation, my father's generation, all the inventions that have come because of electricity have caused this. Now, what do? You can't take electricity away. Ain't nobody wants to do that. I'm not giving up my electricity, even though this podcast studio doesn't have electric. I'm running on solar battery banks, but it's a technology that nobody had before. We couldn't store electricity in batteries for as long as these things will do. So we have gadgets today that weren't available not long ago. I mean, just you go back 15 years ago and see where we were versus where we are today. It's amazing. So the younger generation, we can give them a break with that. It's just how they grew up. They grew up with air conditioning. They grew up with, I think my generation was the last. I remember as a young kid, we didn't have a lot of the places we lived. We didn't have air conditioning. They had attic fans. You would turn this attic fan on and it would suck, and they were loud and powerful. The little louvers would open up and it would suck all the hot air out of the house. And let me tell you, I wish I had one in this house because I'd run it. Those things work good. If you have a house that has one of them, it's worth fixing. It's worth keeping up because they work great. And it does cool the house down. But we have gotten so spoiled, all of us. And this is the problem. Too much energy. And too much energy creates unhealthy people. And that's what we have. We have people that are used to being indoors you're seeing a rise in cancers, from skin cancer, from people that just don't spend enough time outside. And when they do get some sun, it's dangerous for them. Sun is something we need. It's vitamin D. We need it. There's a lot of vitamin D deficient people because we have become way too dependent on electricity. I know when the power goes out, man, I have things to deal with that now. If my power goes out now, it doesn't affect me. And that's something that's also sad, that we have gadgets now. If our grid goes down, we'll still have power. We have solar battery generators. We've got more things to create electricity than anybody's ever had in history. But to blame the younger generation for everything, there's a reason they are the way they are, and they just don't know any better. I'm not saying everybody's bad. I'm not saying they're bad. I'm just saying they grew up different than generations before them. And I remember as a kid, there just wasn't, we had a record player, would get records and sit in there, but we wanted to be outside, man. That's where the rest of the kids were, riding bikes, skateboards, whatever brought you outside. That's where all the other kids were, and that's where you wanted to be. But now they can get online and play video games with the guy next door and never even walk out of the house. So this helps create a lot of this problem that we have, this unhealthiness, the obesity. You combine that with some of the foods that we have today, it's making a big difference in our country. And you can go look at some of these third world countries that a lot of them still don't have electricity. They're still living like we lived back in the 1800s. And most of them are skinny and they work long hours. We have grown out of that, and we no longer, our hours have gotten shorter in this country. So if you're going to blame things, if we're going to throw the blame at any particular group or generation, it's electricity. Electricity, who knows what's coming after electricity? Nuclear power, even nuclear power is used to create electricity. So we will always have some form of electricity. And now vehicles pretty much got the same gadgets in your vehicles that you have in your homes. That's good. But anyway, I thought I would do my first podcast about electricity because, well, I don't have any in here. Not off the grid, not on the grid anyway. And I built this place with that intention. Now, I do have an extension cord that pops in the window that will power my lights. That's it. I don't have any wall outlets in here. And I did wire those lights where I could unplug them and plug them into a solar power generator. So if the grid goes down, man, this place is good. This is set. This is one of the reasons I built it this way. I can also run my generator. Generators have been around a long time, but when electricity first came out, no, they I would imagine they had generators first. Generators were run by steam. They were run by hydro. So many things. Well, let me know what you think about electricity. Would you do without it? Have you done without it? I spent 2 months camping in the Everglades. I didn't really have nowhere else to go, and I'll tell you, I appreciated electricity when I got back to the population. Because if you've ever been to the Everglades, let alone camp there for 2 months, that's a life lesson for you. So I look back on my life and I know that I've had experiences where I appreciate some of these things that I have now. And I think we all should. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video quality. I hope it's better. I hope the sound quality is better. We're going to try to get these podcasts off on a regular basis now. I've got everything I need. You should see a major difference in the quality. So I appreciate you all watching. Happy trails.